Angels descending, bring from above. Echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
First of all, I'd like to begin by thanking y'all for being here. You know, I know a lot of times that just speaking with some of the retired firefighters, I know you feel forgot about sometimes. And this part of this, a big part of this, is just to remind you that, you know, that you are important. You are important to us and important to the groundwork that was laid for the fire service in Caldwell County. So this is, I'd like to begin by thanking each one of you. And thank you for your time being here. For those that don't know me, I am Jason Hines. I'm chaplain, volunteer at SAWMILLS, and I work for the City of LENOIR Fire Department. But I'll serve whoever needs serving. But just wanted to, we're just going to begin today. Like I say, we're just going to talk about, just tell stories. But I would like to ask that we'll start over at Thomas and tell your name and fire department or fire departments that you've been with, and how many years you was in, how many years you've been retired. Just, you know, just kind of introduce yourself.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Thomas Laws, I retired from Granite Falls Fire Department after 33 years with them. I started in Hudson Fire Department and was there for a year and a half, 2 years before I got a job at Granite Falls. Been retired now for 6 years and enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah.
I'm Larry Storie. I started at GAMEWELL in 1967 as a volunteer with Sammy Safer. And Sammy and I were still in high school. And they tell us that we hear that we were the first 2 student firemen in the state. We carried turnout gear on the school bus and stuff. Then I went to Hudson in 1977, and I'm still involved somewhat directing traffic and still some of the calls, but staying active somewhat in it, and a little involvement. Enjoy it, but I've been in it 54 years, something like that.
Still keeping them straight.
Well, that's hard to do, but I try. You know.
Yeah.
I'm Doug Brookshire. I'm with Kings Creek Fire Department. One of the chartered members of Kings Creek Fire Department. Started in May of 1976, I think is correct. And I've had several positions in the department. I was captain for a while, and then I was chief for a while. But being involved in, like Larry, I'm kind of involved in. I'm still on the board of the directors. Been in it since, well, still been a part of it ever since the department started. So, ever how many years that is. But it's been a very vital part of our community.
I'm Mike Cook. I guess I'm the youngster of the group. When you go down and start counting the times that everybody started, but I got my start at Patterson, and that would have been in 76, 77 when I was still in high school, and then transitioned into just being a member of the fire department when I was of age. So, you know, I went from Patterson, stayed at Patterson for a long time, and then went to work for the City of LENOIR and stayed a volunteer at Patterson, and was with the City of LENOIR for about 5.5 years, and then went to the county and worked in the fire marshal's office for about 2.5 years, and then went to work for the state and with the Division of Emergency Management. But I always credit my whole career starting as a volunteer at Patterson Fire Department, and it just led into a career of emergency services, and I've had a lot of opportunities because of it.
I'm Doug Saunders. I started off with Patterson in 1978, I believe. And I was there, an active fireman, about 15 years. I'm currently on the board of directors, again. And we're very proud of that department. It's come a long way in the time that it's been there. And we've got some great firemen, we've got great equipment. And some of us have managed to live through some bad stuff.
Yeah. Kind of start out some of the looking at some of the history of your fire departments of like, well, maybe if you remember if you was around when they got them started, or just some of the background history of your fire departments, and we'll just just jump in whenever as you think of things. But
I think a lot of the fire departments started when the city of LENOIR quit providing services out, and that was in the around 56.
Somewhat, yeah. I can remember as a youngster out there in GAMEWELL, lived on 18 out there on Morton Road, about a mile past the school. And fire trucks from Lenore coming out one time, and I was just a youngster. Went to a house fire, and we was going to see where it was at, and down on Calico. And it was shortly after that, I think it was in the process in the GAMEWELL RHODHISS Club was big in the community, and a lot of the members then started organizing the fire department. And I remember my parents were both involved in it quite a bit. Daddy was a charter member, but I don't know how many chicken and ham dinners as young kids, and then my sister and other children of the firemen members out there would work at the school cafeteria for prep before, cleaning up, serving during, to raise money for it. And I can remember, I think it was July of '58 that they backed the first truck in out there, an old Quonset down there below the old elementary school. Well, it was the junior high then, I think. But anyhow, Mr. A.D. Williams was chief. And there's an old Ford chassis, stub-nose Ford, with American France pumper and body on it. And I climbed on the tailboard. Mr. Williams took me off the tailboard. And back then, parents would discipline other people's children, and he dusted my pants for that. But then I run around the other side and climbed on the tailboard, or sideboard, and back in, got the back end of the station. Of course, Daddy had a discussion with me after that, but I'd always look forward to going to the station.
Never
anytime.
left you, did it?
Huh?
Never left you, did it?
No, never left me.
Well, you're talking about in GAMEWELL. I know that Ruleton clubs were big in the whole county, but I think that Patterson actually centered around Happy Valley School and Yakin Baptist Church, because Charlie Sudbury was one of the key people in it. Bruce Whiteley, who was with the school system for years and years, was actually a VALMEAD teacher at Happy Valley, and a lot of the members came from the school. And first truck they had, they actually, I think, put in Wisnet's garage up there. And Jay Wisnet and Robert, who were involved in it. And a lot of the guys that stayed with the fire department for years were students under Mr. Whiteley. And just, a lot of those key members in the community that put so much into the communities. And just like you said, Mr. Williams, and just would stay right there with it. And those guys were with it for years.
Oh, yeah.
And go back and pretty much see all of them have gone on beyond. So it's been interesting to see the evolution of the fire service, at least in our community, I know, and watching that, and countywide, seeing the equipment and the stations that are there from where people used to put, the bricklaying class, I think, came laid block, is what Doug told me.
The community laid the block of stuff from Patterson Station, and Bruce Whiteley's vocational class came and did the brickwork on the building.
wow.
That way they got the truck out from underneath the tarp up at Jay's garage.
Back, taking it back a little bit further than that is LENOIR and Granite Falls were the only two fire departments in the county. And Granite's got records and stuff where they went to Taylorsville for a fire, up Blowing Rock Mountain to a fire, saved a lot of wells and chimneys that way.
Yeah.
But very, 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 very long runs. And in 1903, the town basically burned down. There was 3 buildings left in 1903, and the only thing they had to battle it with was buckets. And everybody in town, from the records and stuff that we've got, everybody was fighting the fire with buckets and water. And you saw how effective that was, you know, saved 3 buildings. But Granite Falls has got a pretty good history of having a fire department way back, because of course they formed one then. Of course, once they went mechanized and got a vehicle that carried water or something, or hose or whatever it was that they had at that period of time, they also used that vehicle to drag the streets when the streets need to be dragged. You know, whatever you got, that's what you use.
That's right.
They also, in the minutes of the town, you know, once they actually chartered a fire department, I think they chartered a fire department in 1934. And that's when the town actually legally created one. They had one way prior to that, after 1903. But they'd pay the volunteer firemen $1 a call and $2 if they throwed water, is the way it was written.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of money.
If they throwed water, $2 a call. Back when I started to work there, I think we ran around 60 calls a year in 1982. Now they're running 1,000 plus, something like that a year now. Of course, you can attribute a whole lot of that to the medical calls that's being run too.
Right. I
And,
think that was a big expansion of the fire service in the county and the rescue services of the county is when they started taking on the first responder
Yeah.
services.
And that was
And the
in
communities have really loved it.
1984.
Yeah.
I know when we'd respond with EMS, they'd say, well, what's the fire department doing here?
Yeah.
And you'd have to explain that. And then the next thing you knew, EMS would get there and people were asking, well, where's the fire department? You know, the aspect of it, like Thomas said, the call volume increased. I know when I went to Hudson in '77, it had just become a fire service district because due to annexation and stuff, they'd lost a lot of their revenue. And so I know they were just starting into the tax-supported aspect of it. Chief Richard Bean was chief in. But then what it evolved to and came into Chief Whiteside. And like Thomas said, I think when you came on, it was paying about $250 a call or something like that. Gas money, maybe.
Yeah, gas money.
Something like that when he came on, and then it's evolved into the, you know, something that didn't even cover the cost, really. And you're talking about getting paid for a call. I know they used to didn't, and I can remember as a kid, when Daddy and them would come back from a meeting, I remember one time especially, I was about 7th, 8th grade, and Daddy come back from the fire department, and I heard Mom in there. Oh, she was giving him a fit. I thought, what in the world's going on? Come to find out, the members out there, they're taking money out of their pockets to go put gas in the fire trucks. And that, you know, to find out through the county, that happened a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember some of the old guys at Hudson talking, I was talking to them down there after I became chief, get a little history, and it was organized in 1950, I think, chartered. But they were doing a lot of the same stuff, you know, and like Granite was running to Blowing Rock and all these different areas. I think some of the records showed that Hudson was doing some of the same stuff because, you know, the communities would call and ask for help, then they would decide to organize their own community departments and stuff, which led to it. But, you know, the medical aspect of it really increased call volumes in that aspect and put a lot of, at first you might say it was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
But then it became, it's kind of a have to. You couldn't, now, if someone tried to get out of the medical aspect of it, they'd be, like it's a political suicide, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's expected, and it's a service community, and I think most guys get involved to put something back. I think that's what we were taught as young people, children, kids, whatever you want to say. Our parents would teach us, be a part of the community, put something into it. And I think that's what you encourage people to do. And be a part.
We're lacking in a lot of that today.
It's hard because there's so much more for young people to do. Not saying that we're seeing some young people come in now, and are good people, but, they're not tearing the doors down.
Yeah.
And I think you see it all across the state that volunteer departments are having problems recruiting, retaining, and you look at the age of us out here in the fire service and what's going on, and like I say, the requirements that are put. Used to, the requirements wasn't that much. I mean, you showed up. And I can remember it took forever to get a set of turnout gear. Somebody might have a coat, somebody'd have a helmet. When I was a young kid, and a pair of pants, they'd swap them on a fire or something like that.
Well, you're talking about gear, you remember when they had the high boots and the long coats? And
I remember that.
helmets might have been plastic.
Out at Gamewell. Them old cloth gloves with rubber on them. Freeze your hands off.
And in breathing equipment, you didn't get it off the truck.
No, what's this? Don't ask about that.
Don't worry with that stuff.
Don't open that up. And you open my door, where's that? And dust would fly.
You weren't a firefighter unless you could eat smoke.
Yeah.
That was the
But
theory.
you think back in those days, though, you had a lot of natural products. The woods, houses were still built out of wood, furniture, whereas as technology advanced, I guess you say, you became susceptible to more of an environment that was really hazardous. The poly products, oil-based or substances and
Our
products.
world now is made of plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you burn it and all that stuff, it gives off gases that can kill you, so.
But I can remember just well, don't get that equipment off there. It costs us to put air in the tank.
Yeah.
We used to have to pay to have air.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna have to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that was just a train of thought, and the way, like you say, it has evolved through the years. You had to change. And fire service is notorious for not accepting change, being real resistant to change.
I've always heard that firefighters don't like the way things are and they hate change.
Yeah, that's it.
And so Chief Laws, how long did you have your white coat before you took it out and threw it down on the ground to get it dirty so nobody would see you with a new piece of coat on?
Not long.
Yeah, now they wash their gear, but
Yeah.
and understand why. But
Yeah.
back then, you used to, man, until we could break our gear in and get some tar on it and
Oh, yeah.
Limber it up.
dirt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like everybody stayed away from you. You came in with new gear on.
It's probably still that way. Yeah.
That's how you mark your rookies.
That's right, exactly.
That's right.
But like I said, when I started, myself and Sammy Seyfert were in high school. That was McCall for them. And of course, we knew everybody in the fire department. Like I said, grew up pretty much in it with Dad and stuff. And he was chief. Howard Kincaid was chief in. And, Sammy and I turned 18 in '66. So he called in '67. He was out at the fire department. He said, Chief said we could join. We're 18. Okay, sounds cool. I've been wanting to do that. So we did. I went out there on a Sunday. I remember it was January '67 on a Sunday, and I went out there. A buddy of mine's dad was on duty. Then people pulled weekend duty during the day. It was volunteers. Nobody got paid, but they sat out there at the station responding trucks. But I remember my first fire was going to a woods fire up off of Husband Creek Road. Didn't have any gear, didn't know what I was doing. I've been with Daddy on a few of them and stuff. But I remember Sammy and I put our turnout gear on our school buses and take it with us. And somebody come to the door. They call the school. Somebody come to the classroom door, beat on the window, we'd take off. Funny thing, we'd take Mr. Setzer, he was principal then, we'd take his car and go to the fire. And then have to get somebody to drive the school buses for us. But we'd always try to get back, if we could, but, and then too, And Thomas can attest to this, Chief Loss, when he came on Hudson, what he had to go through to become a driver, a pump operator. But I remember, I can think back, and it's scary, when Sammy and I started. We met out on that first Tuesday night, we met in January '67, and they said, come here, we'll show you the trucks. You boys drive school buses, because you kind of know. And so we drove some of those back roads, so yeah, we could get around on them, but it's a little different driving a thing with water sloshing around off and bouncing kids off the window. But, yeah, they said, well, you put the truck in this gear and pull that handle, okay? You come out here and you pull this handle right here, and then see what kind of hose you cut off. You pull that handle, and you don't touch that handle right there. Don't mess with that. That was a pressure relief valve. We didn't know what that was. Set the pressure on it, build it up to about 125 pounds, and that's it. You're set. You're pumping the truck. Scared to death. But it wasn't that next week. We were driving trucks to the fire. Now, you try to do that this day and time, and you can attest to it, Chief. Doug can attest to it down at Kings Creek. Doug, your Patterson, Mike, through the state. There's no the liability aspect of it.
It's changed everything.
It's changed.
Changed everything.
Yeah, and you gotta have so many hours, and, you know, and I'm not saying it's bad, it's good. Because I've always, and Chief Law said this, I always push the aspect, there's only two things that count. Number one, safety, and number two is quality. If you do that in everything, you're gonna come home.
Yeah.
And that's whether it's your work, your play, or recreation, or fire service especially. Safety's a big part of it. You know, we don't want injuries, and, you know, and like I say, we were hard to change. We didn't want to come off the tailboards.
Yeah.
That, you know, that was, if you could stand on the back of a fire truck, somebody standing behind you, put your turnout gear on, going down the road, then you were qualified. But now, you know, it's scary.
Yeah. Doug, did you have a little bit of history that you had
Yes,
there?
I just happen to have.
Yeah, I saw you eyeballing that.
Well, our department, of course, a lot of this I don't remember exactly, but we had some meetings with the school and the Ruritan Club and VALMEAD. I was trying to think of his last name, Joe
Hart.
Hartley. Thank you. See, that's another side of getting on.
Yeah.
He met with us, and anyhow, they said, well, we'll give you a tanker. They had an old Rio Army truck, a tanker thing, 1,000-gallon tanker. He said, we'll give you that. And he said, then you can steal the rest. But anyway, my mom and dad donated the land that the fire department sits on today, and Johnny White and some others, they did a lot of work getting the land ready and got the department built, and wasn't long after and I can't remember I don't think we even had the building done yet, that we were able to purchase our first pumper truck, 601. It was that yellow looking paint that they had back then.
You
And,
said about the sun that ripened.
yeah.
Yeah. They weren't quite ripe yet.
Our first unofficial call, because we hadn't been rated yet or recognized by the state, was on Christmas Eve in 1975. There was a house across the road caught on fire, and one of our firemen was listening to the scanner and heard VALMEAD being dispatched to that. Well, he had his wife to call all he could think of to come, and so anyhow, we got over there. Well, I got over there to get that old Army truck out. Well, unfortunately, it was notorious for batteries not staying up on it. Well, they kept hollering for the truck. Well, I said, I can't get it cranked. Well, they went over there and they got the portable pump off of it, because there's a little pond that set off down there, and was able to pump water up to the 601. And they kept hollering for that truck, and I just told them plainly that I couldn't get it out, and some of the vernacular I used was not quite nice to hear across the radio, but I wanted them to know I was trying. And of course, I was young back then and stout, and I finally pushed that 1,000-gallon tanker out to where it would roll down, and I popped the clutch and got it fired up and got over there, and of course, see, VALMEAD was like 14, 15 miles away, so getting down there, quick. But we had the fire knocked down, we just didn't have it completely mopped up every time they got there. I mean, that was not knocking them, it was just distance. you know.
Conditions, yeah.
And, but anyway, got it out, and we always had some issues with that truck, the batteries going dead in, so we ended up buying us a little trickle charger and
Keep on.
put on it and stuff. But again, like I said, in May of 1976, we got rated a 9A, I think is what they started you out at.
Yeah.
Then as time went on, we got a better rating and stuff. And but it was just a good experience for me. Of course, when you're young and all that responding and the red lights and all that stuff, you just really get excited and stuff. You just got to, it's more of a thing of trying to keep you contained.
Right.
Right.
Some of the things that has changed over the years, though, was, or at least was for me, because of just the way things have changed about woods fires. Used to, you didn't hardly ever get called out to a woods fire. Forestry Service most of the time took care of it if it was just anything like that. But then the fires got a little more intense. They got more homes being
Threatened.
close to where the fires, because before people built homes and stuff, they wanted them in the woods. And so that got to be an issue to where that I almost dreaded those worse than I ever did a building. And then I think it was 1985, I ain't sure, but I'm trying to think of Tim, I think it's Tim Miller. He started doing the training for our first responder. And I think, now I may be wrong, but I think our department was at least one of the first. We were kind of the guinea pigs of seeing how this was going to work.
Hudson and Kings Creek.
Probably.
And Gurney Robbins was our coordinator for that and did the training. Of course, we did the CPR and all that stuff. You know, it was a lot of, I mean, we had a lot of fun in the department. And one of the things I think for us, or at least was for me, and I'm like Larry, I'm not knocking the training so much, but the training, because of so much that is required of you to have as far as certifications and keeping in service and all this stuff, you didn't have a lot of time to get to know one another like you did back when we first started out. You had more time for public relations, if you want to call it that. We still done our training and everything, but you know, and of course, being a volunteer, a lot of times that just has the people's, I guess, definition of volunteer fire department is different than what it was back then, because it's more like you're not really volunteering anymore.
Right.
It's partial pay.
Yeah.
And so
Expected to be
It-
professional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing that I think that I missed a lot was we got to know one another. We got to know what one another's our thinking was the same. And if we got on a scene, even though maybe this was not normally what we were best trained in, but if you saw something that needed done and you knew how to do it, you didn't have to have somebody to direct you. Here, go pull that hose. It's getting kinked on. Or here, go help them put that hose around the house there. You know, you just done it because you're all thinking on the same mind frame. And
We kind of grew together.
absolutely.
A lot of people don't understand the brotherhood of the fire service
That's
or
right.
emergency services.
Emergency services.
Yeah, that's a good way of
It
putting
is
it.
a true brotherhood.
It is, and a lot of people don't understand the, I guess for lack of a better, the sense of humor. You might say that firemen, paramedics, EMTs, law enforcement, people in emergency services have. But, and I think you try to explain it, it's just with what the guys see. You know, what you involve in. And I know for times we would sit around after a call and talk.
Yeah.
Supposedly. But, you know, or pick on each other or make a comment about something happened on the scene. But really, you look back on it, it was the beginning stages of critical incident debriefing, I guess that's the
It
term
was.
for it now. But And my wife would often say, "What are you staying over there so long? It's all ended, you know." I said, "Well, we're just talking. Yeah, you're just sitting around running your mouth. Well, yeah." But what it was getting stuff out of our system and not wanting to take it home.
Yep,
You're
absolutely.
trying to keep from taking it home because, like I say, every one of us has seen some stuff that,
Well, you can also see things that maybe it didn't go exactly right at the scene, and you discussed that.
right,
Kind of critique kind of thing.
And you could do that because of the feeling towards one another.
right, is a brotherhood.
I mean,
How to fix that problem.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we're
Amongst
sitting there fussing and complaining and beating you over the head, just saying, okay.
We
guys.
did that too, though.
Yeah, you can do it to each other, but somebody else better not come in.
It's like trying to break up a fight between brothers.
That's right. But, you know, and you think about Doug and Chief Laws, and Chief Laws was had his own business when he started at Hudson. I remember that, and because he was available to us a lot. But you think in the times that like Doug started and I started, and back then, business in this county were local businesses, and a lot of firemen worked there so they could leave. They had no problems with it. I know, and at that time I was working for Southern Bell, and they had a policy, yeah, you could leave, we'll pay you. Just let your supervisor know, don't break any speed limits and all this, and there was no problem. And that was with a lot of furniture factories here and stuff, Kincaid, Broad Hills. All of them were supportive of volunteer organizations, because a lot of them were partially in volunteer fire districts.
Yeah, when the Dolls had the paper plant in
Paper plant,
Patterson,
yeah.
they encouraged their employees to
Employees.
be part of the fire department. Because
And I remember-
they needed them.
Yeah.
The textile
They
mill
give them
in
on-
Hudson,
And
Hayes,
they paid them while they were gone.
Yeah.
Hayes Cotton Mill, they housed the first fire truck, but they encouraged their people to be a part of it, their fire brigades. We'd cross-train and stuff and work with each other. And that's something that regrettably has changed through the years. There are businesses that are not as receptive to that idea. And that's sad, because it has hurt a lot of communities, a lot of departments with manpower during the day.
Sure.
And that's why you see a lot of departments now go into the combination aspect. If you can find people, if you can work your revenue, work your budgets to put people on to give that coverage. Because I had one industry years ago when I was chief at Hudson tell me that we expect out of your department, out of Hudson, the same response, the same number of people that LENOIR or GRANITE businesses will get. And that's, you know, they're taxpayers. Yeah, okay, you're a taxpayer. And I can see that aspect. You're sitting there as a taxpayer. But then you're sitting there in the administrative part, or the chief's part, or officer part of a department, or a board member, saying, how are we gonna do this? They expect this. We've got to do something. So, you know, and it's come to the combination departments, people putting on paid people, and, you know, and it costs. You know, anytime you buy something in the fire service, if it's a hose
gosh.
clamp, it's
Yeah.
double or triple
Double,
anything
yes,
else.
it's
It's got fire service
You could
on
go
it.
you go down to your hardware store and buy the same thing for $1, but you got to go through a fire department, a fire service or fire sales
Supply company.
organization, supply company. It's $3 or $4. You know, and then apparatus, trucks, equipment, anything. So it's become, you know, it's hard.
Do we
Raise young
still, and I ask this question because I'm outside the loop on it, do we still have the competitiveness between fire departments that once were? Because I can remember times where it almost come down to knockout blows that you brought your truck in my fire district and put a fire out.
I don't think that as much as it was one time, but that we don't have the competitive and we did like we used to have the fire competition.
Top dog stuff,
Right.
challenges.
Yeah, the bucket brigades or the hose competitions, that's not there. But I think the fact of, you crossed over to my district.
Oh, yeah, they just almost
Yeah.
come to blows over a
Yeah,
house.
Yeah, that's my fire district, you go and read it, and that's ours, you know. I don't think that as much so as it once was, because due to the aspect of
I think
your
the-
manpower, what you need.
The need for mutual
The
aid.
need for
We've
mutual
all
aid.
hit that because
Yeah.
we don't have it.
You don't have the manpower
Yeah.
available.
You have to depend
Chief,
on
You
it.
have to
Chief
depend on everybody
Whiteside
else.
once said, the easiest way to lose command of your situation is to call mutual aid. And at that time, I think it was, because they didn't come as a unit. They dribbled in, they didn't fight fire like you fought fire. They didn't have a command structure necessarily at that time, way back then.
Right, yeah.
When Mac was chief and everything.
And that was about the time.
Didn't use incident command
Yes, sir.
at all. You know?
Right.
So, you know, you just get new people coming in and doing whatever they saw fit to do. And
I think the term was what, helter-skelter?
yeah, that's
Somewhat,
it.
yeah.
Somewhat.
And now, and I've said this, being with the state emergency management and being in communities all over the state, you know, that person out there that's trapped in a car, that's house is burned down, they don't even see what's written on the side of your car.
And they don't care.
They
won't
don't
help.
care. They want to know that that person is there to help me. And there was a time when the fire service didn't feel that way between fire departments and the communities, because it was like, this is our community. What are you doing here?
Well, you look back in the history of the fire service, going back to the 1700s, 1800s, those early times and stuff, if you read it, the competition between, in a town, hose company or a ladder company or a truck company, these were volunteers then, but they would actually get in fights at the scene. Buildings would burn down, they would be fighting, those
Yeah.
articles and
Fighting
stuff.
over whose fire it
Whose
was.
fire it was.
Not too long ago, I was reading an article about Newbern and how they had 2 fire companies down there and they would actually fight in the streets.
I mean, that's where firefighter come from.
Maybe right.
What, kind of getting in, we talked about some of the history. How did some of you guys get started in the fire service? Like, what sparked your interest, you know, or how did you end up at the firehouse doors?
I can mention, my interest came because Mike and I were good friends before then, and he was a fireman. Said, I want to be one too.
Right.
And that's how I got started.
Right.
And I wouldn't change a thing. Well, wait, rephrase it.
Yeah.
Some things I wouldn't change. Some things would be better, some would not be as good. So.
Yeah.
Larry Storie and Daryl Herman got me into it.
Yeah.
We were friends outside the fire department atmosphere and everything, and Hudson was running a campaign to get some volunteers, and I think there were 5 of us came on at that time.
Right, yeah.
Tim Danielson,
Yeah,
Beard,
Steve Baird,
Steve
remember
Beard.
Steve?
Oh gosh.
Was Ronnie part, Ronnie came later, did he?
No, Ronnie came before me.
Before you, okay.
Ronnie and Tommy both. One was a
Okay.
year and one was 6 months
Okay.
before I came. But
Bradshaw wasn't part of that, was he? Tommy?
no, Tom.
We-
That's what I was talking about. Bradshaw.
Bradshaw,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he came in.
Guido.
He came in 6
Guido,
months.
Guido, sorry.
Yeah, Guido.
That been a long
Father
time.
Guido. He came in 6 months before I did, and Ronnie had been there a year, I think.
Okay. I knew you, a bunch of you guys were there close within a year and a half of each other.
Coy Bowman.
Coy?
Yeah.
Coy Bowman, he's been at Patterson, came down to Hudson. He's Bill Bowman's son.
Yep.
Bill Bowman's son-in-law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Coy, he was up at
Remember
Patterson.
that.
Yeah, I think he might have been in
I'm
there.
trying to think of the other. There's one more in that 5, and I can't think who it was.
Because I think Mac set it up to where, Chief Whiteside set it up where y'all was in a group, the special training classes. I mean, not, you know, to train y'all together or something. Was that the
No.
group or is that another
No,
group?
it's just that we all had the first night at about the same time.
Okay.
We all came in the fire service at the same time.
But-
One, of course, I was in for it for the thrill. Of course, I'd had been part of the Ruritan Club too. My dad had been it. I'd always help him and stuff, one thing and another. And getting into that, and of course, the excitement of that part of being at young age and everything. I this may be off track, but I couldn't help but think about, you said some things about trigger a memory. We hadn't started our first responder program yet, and we had a wreck right there at my driveway one day. And this pickup had come around the corner there, and a car hit it, and it caught the left front fender, the left door of that pickup, and the left hind fender, and took it off. And that pickup was full of people. But there was a guy laying there, and he had cuts on him and stuff, and there was a woman there, and she was screaming over him, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And this was back when the EMS kind of just load and go. Me and Stanley Edwards was kind of there trying to help direct traffic. I mean, we had no clue about what to do to help anybody much as far as, you know, but she was screaming, just, oh, he's dead. Well, the EMS got there, and they threw him on the stretcher, and when he about got to the ambulance, he jumped off there like a deer. He said, "Where's my woman?" So I ain't going nowhere without my woman. And then they both walked inside the ambulance. Me and Stanley both looked at one another, our mouth dropped open like we thought he was dead. Because he hadn't moved.
Right.
But when he wanted to
came
know
to.
where his woman was.
You asked a question like, when started, or what sparked the interest. I guess it was back when I was a kid and Daddy was involved in it and got started in it. And, you know, if your parents told you you're gonna help at this dinner, it made no difference. You were gonna help. You know, that was it.
You were born into it.
Yeah, I was born into it, raised in it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I knew the guys, and as growing up in the fire department, and when it moved to its present location out there at GAMEWELL then, was a part of it when it was being built and all this, and watched it, and then knowing the chief, Chief Williams, and then Howard Kincaid was chief when, like I say, Sammy said we could join and got started in it, and coming into it and growing up in it. But like I say, it's, I don't know, it's something, I guess, you know, you get started in it, you get involved in it, and family will ask me, when are you going to give it up? I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've enjoyed, you know, back to doing the things, you know, driving the truck and doing stuff like that. And I said, well, I guess I'll just fade away someday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess when God said that's it, you know, that's the time, you know. But as long as I can, you know, be there, I guess, in the aspect of training and bringing some stuff forward to these young people coming along, helping that aspect, you know, kind of watching after them. You kind of stand back after
Yeah.
years, you can kind of see things and point them out and help in some way. You know, still have that involvement, but, you know, you
Still
have
got
to
stuff
realize
to
there's
offer.
things you can't do anymore, you know, or.
Go ahead and training change though.
Yes.
Gosh.
I was thinking that we were doing a training fire when I was with LENOIR, and Chief Williams said, boys, this is the way a fire gets started, and then he'd throw a 5-gallon bucket of diesel in the room over tops of your heads when you put it in there. They'd crucify us today for that, but I mean, training's just, it's good training, don't get me wrong, but back then, there was no standard for how you were trained, really.
No, not really. The NFPA hadn't set a standard yet, so to speak.
I don't know if they still do the Christmas tree with the gas train.
Yeah, I've seen
I
that.
think they still do, you know.
I'll never forget that, seeing icicles hanging there and the fire so dang hot you couldn't stand it.
Yeah, they still
That there's weird.
Yeah.
But, you know, the aspect of like you talk about in the training and the standards set forth, not saying it's bad, and like the NFPA sets down, it's not a law, it's a recommendation. But if something happens, you better be trying to go by that standard, or you say accept this standard and go by it. But for the liability aspect of it, to basically cover yourself, protect your department in that aspect. But
You know, Chief Laws, you were probably part of putting together that, what, Chief 101 they have, it's, 'cause I mean, they're just, I mean, you wouldn't become a chief, and it's just because you got the title.
Nobody else.
Going back on training.
You missed that meeting.
I'll get on that in just a minute. What was available back then? But the training has changed so much from when we first started. The state Department of Insurance had the premier instructors. I mean,
Yes, sir.
they
Yeah,
were,
OSFE?
they were the best. And then I was thinking about how many came from Caldwell County that worked for the state. I mean, you know,
Shoot.
they had limited amount of people, but we had Claude Shue, Chief Briscoe,
Yeah.
Herb Coffey.
Coffey.
You went with them, didn't you?
No, I didn't, no.
You didn't?
I went straight to state emergency management.
Emergency management. But, I mean, the Lenoir Fire Department contributed
Tremendously.
a lot to the
Department of Insurance.
Department of Insurance.
At that time, yeah.
Instructors, yeah. And when I became chief, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, put on a program. It's not called Chief 101, it was called Fire Department Management. And people who were in line to be chief or assistant chiefs and stuff like that would go to this school at Chapel Hill. I know I went down there for weeks. That they also had one for city managers
Right.
and stuff like that. And you go down there and you learn all sorts of stuff, legal stuff, budgeting, personnel management, little psychology they throw in there. That's, computers had just come on the scene. I mean, all it was a brown or a green screen is all that there was. There were no programs, but they taught us how to basically create an index card that you could put your hose on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
on a computer that was just like an index card, except it's on the computer. That was big time stuff back then. And
When did Caldwell County start being able to take advantage of the National Fire Academy at Emmitsburg, Maryland?
oh gosh,
It was in the 80s, I feel
It was
like.
in the late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s. I remember,
Yeah,
remember
that's-
sending people up to
and, you know, that was
Emmitsburg
big
for North
time.
Carolina weekends and stuff.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, and,
Just the exposure to that. And
Right.
before that, it was pretty much what you said.
yeah, the state, you know, used to, we had the, fire school week.
Yes.
You had a
Yeah.
week, Monday through Thursday, you burn a house.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually the one class was house burning on Thursday
Yeah,
night and
yeah.
stuff like that, but you had
Yeah.
different classes. Or you would go to places like Forsyth County,
Right.
Fire School Weekend, Davidson,
McDowell.
McDowell County,
McDowell County,
Cleveland
yeah,
County.
Yes, sir.
Then other counties start, Burke counties, they all start having training. And you got a little different aspect, a little different idea, but you still held on to that aspect. Well, this is the way we do it. Unless you can show me different, this has been a proven, tried and proven practice.
The
gonna
state
still do
also
it.
put on fire college.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So,
Exactly,
and,
yeah.
and it would be a week in the summertime, and you'd go down and take a really in-depth class in a particular subject. And I remember one that I went to, we service tested trucks for a week.
Wow.
Truck after truck. You knew the form backwards, frontwards, everything that had to be put on there. I mean, by the time you came out of there, you could service test any truck. It didn't matter what it was. You could service test it. And, you know, that's what state did for us back
That's
then.
right. You're exactly right. And like you said, it started with the fire marshal's office, state fire marshal's office, and it's evolved to the community college system now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
community college system.
That's really brought a long way. And for the training to be offered free,
Yeah,
that was huge for
Especially-
the fire service.
but you take now, a guy going through his firefighter 1, firefighter 2, you got EMT department, going to EMTs, that's 6 months,
Yes,
I
sir.
think. Firefighter 1 and 2, then you got rescue, your trench rescue,
We
ropes
went from
and
30
knots.
hours of training a year, or 36 hours of training a year to 400.
Rough, probably, yeah. And like I say, it's hard to bring people into this. You hand them a sheet of paper, here's our rules and regulations. And by the way, you're expected to be at training, respond to calls, and be a part of this organization.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's hurt. I mean, I think it's hurt in the aspect of, especially when you talk about volunteer. That's what I was mentioning earlier about how that, you know, that's a lot of time that people take. I mean, you think about the fire calls just themselves
Right.
and taking time away from their families and even their work. And then the training, and then not only the fire training, but all the other training, and the next thing you know, you know, it's almost like, in a sense, kind of like being in the military or you're the truck driver. It's hard for some families to adjust to that,
Right.
that separation from their.
I know, I tell guys, when somebody come on an application, I say, well, here's the rules and regulations. Read over them. Here's an application. But I said, if they were married, I'd say, okay, read them over with your wife.
Yep.
Let her understand, you know, also. And so that they will have an idea, you know, of what's expected, what the husband or wife, or if it's a woman coming, wanting to join their department, to read over this and understand it. Both parties understand what's expected, what's going to happen. And sometimes some guys come back, nope. And you have to respect that. But like I say, it's become, you know, it's like Doug said, Chief Law said, it's like a second job.
Speaking, you mentioned women, and you know, when I first went to fire service, you didn't hear women being
there
in
were
fire
none.
service.
Not
There
a
were
lot.
none. And I think, best I remember, Gamewell probably had some of the first.
We had a lady back in the 80s that joined, our
Yeah.
first lady's Katrina Bennett, and it was funny. We were running a call, and of course, her husband was a fireman too, and of course, she would come over to the fire station. She was on riding the truck. Well, she got over there, and she said, "Hold on a minute." She's getting ready to try to get her pants and gears and stuff on, you know, and somebody said, "How come it took you a little while?" I thought I'd wait for Katrina to get her pants on. Then I realized what I said. Now, that's not the way I meant it.
Here again, that sense of humor comes out. Only firemen could understand that.
Yeah.
We had a woman on the department at Granite when I went to work there.
Okay.
Wakefield, Nadine Wakefield, yeah. She was there then.
It'd stay right with you too.
Yeah, we had several
Firefighter.
that come on. Shannon Wild's wife,
Kim.
Kim came on,
I remember that.
and another nurse from the hospital, Carolyn Perry, I believe, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then several through the years. And when we merged with Hudson Rescue, we had several come on, come up with rescue with us. And then there's a young lady on there now, Cassidy, I believe she's a fireman at LENOIR also. So it has evolved, and, you know, and not saying any different. There's, you
Well,
know,
they can be
always,
an asset to you, because especially first responder calls, you know, where, I mean, they might be more apt to administer care to a woman than
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
would
saying
do that.
do any better, but I'm just saying they may feel more at ease with a woman.
and not saying, you know, I've always said, I don't care who it is, male, female, if you can do the job, you deserve the position.
Opportunity.
And you deserve the
Yeah.
equal pay and all this,
Yep.
you know, if you can do the job, that's it, that's great, no matter what the gender is. And so that's what it should be. And I know sometimes in departments I know, when somebody first comes on, they feel like, God, I want to be part of this. 'Cause guys are real protective of their department and protective of what they know. And
When you're not just accepted right into the family,
No,
you have to kind of earn
you
your
have to earn
way.
your way
prove
in.
yourself.
And that's what I tell a lot of guys. I say, or if we'd have guys going from our department, Hudson to LENOIR or Hickory or Charlotte. You know, I told my son Willie, when you go down there, when you went to Hickory, I said, you don't tell them this is the way Hudson does it. You go to Charlotte, you don't tell them this is the way Hickory or Hudson does it. Because these people are proud of what they do. You don't come in. You know, I said, you ask questions. And that's what I tell new members. He said, you go out here to get to know these guys, you ask questions. You don't know anything. And that's, you know,
That's good advice.
and that was, you know, that way you're more accepted, because if you ask someone a question, then you're more likely to give them all the information you can to give them. You realize, okay, this person wants to be a part. They could be my, you know, my life or death out here on the scene. So I want them to know. It's just like teaching pump classes. I want that guy on the pump to know what he or she's doing and to treat it just like, to act just like I'm on that hose line while I'm pumping, to take care of it. So that's what you want people to know. But, and I know we were hesitant. I know when I started GAMEWELL, guys, you know, they were real, not receptive, but I got accepted pretty easily because, you know, Dad was out there. But, you know, it was that way all through the years, and somewhat still is today. You still got that pride of your department and what it stands for and what they do.
And we still carry our nicknames that they gave us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody had a nickname.
Yeah, some you can't repeat.
I chose not to say that. You notice I approach that carefully.
Yeah.
Thanks, Larry.
We've kind of hit on some of the air packs, the, you know, the untouchable air packs and stuff. But what's some of the other equipment that you remember when you first, that might not be the same, or, you know, some of the early equipment? We've kind of touched on some of the gear, the old rubber boots.
No
And,
rubber boots, and that heavy canvas gear that we all wore.
Oh, duck canvas.
Oh, gosh.
Well, the first gear that we bought, and a lot of the firemen bought their own gear. It seemed like to me it was that old, Nomex.
Yeah.
Like $700 and some for a complete set, right at it. And of course, that's back in the early 70s, you know. Well, now I have no clue. It seems like to me it's, what, $1,500 for a set or
That's cheap,
more.
isn't it?
at least, yeah,
When you're still there?
3 to 4 is what they're saying.
Really?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Well, and of course, you know, I have always questioned whether or not that these companies are in cahoots with some of the manufacturers of this stuff to help them stay in business, because I mean, I don't know how much protection it gave me, but the Nomex that I had to begin with was some of the easiest to wear plus maneuver in than some of the other that I got. Some of the other that I have got, I felt like I was
Yeah, you're walking around like the
like I was
Mitchell
out of
Goodyear
space or
band.
somewhere.
You know, and the gear now is sort of custom fitted to the fireman.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I started at Patterson, you went up to the rack, and does this coat fit?
Yeah.
Does this pair of boots fit? Does this pair of pants fit? And
Right.
there you were.
That's what you
Just
got.
hoping to get 2 boots of the same size.
Yeah, same size. That's nice. Yeah.
Well, we used to, I mean, we even, we bought our pagers if we wanted a walkie back when walkies got to be a thing, and we bought our own radios and stuff. I mean, that was just something we done. And then as we were able to, you know, as we progressed with our finances and stuff, we were able to offer assistance and even purchasing some of these things for the firemen. The thing that I always got me was of course, you know, I'm still old school. There were so many of the younger folks coming on, and of course, you know, they wanted their stuff now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and it used to be, we're here to help the community. And science progressed, okay, what's in it for me? And that was something that, and I'm not saying that's always the case, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of change in the perception of what's the department going to do for me? And, you know, when you start telling them what not the way it was when you was going out, you know, because that's old school stuff. I don't want to hear it, but it was to where that you felt like that you were a part of it because you had invested your own money into stuff like that. But in fact, I still have or I did have my old turnout gear at one time, but I threw it all away except my helmet. I've still got my old helmet, but, it's changed a lot over the years but the equipment stuff that we've got now with where we can help extricate and stuff is something that's, has been a good thing to.
Well, like I said, the evolution of turnout gear, the evolution of equipment. You know, when we first started getting cutters, they were big hydraulic heavy tools. Now it's gone to battery operated, powerful, lightweight tools that'll do the same thing, equipment like that. Breathing apparatus, the old steel bottles, you don't take it off the truck unless the chief tells you. You ever train with it? No. And that evolved. We started training with it, getting used to it.
Yeah.
Demand type air packs.
Old smokehouse we had up in, Whitnall.
Yeah.
Old, association, I think, owned it
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something up there. I remember my first time in there, you know, it's just old smoked up mess and you're in there with a whole bunch of people and can't see anything.
They had that big old truck with a maze where you had to go through with the air pack on.
Now, our packs have come, they're 30-minute bottles. Of course, they're not gonna last that long. Depends on the individual.
How much you're working and how
Yeah.
hard you're breathing,
Yeah,
pulling on it.
yeah, and then, of course, now you got stuff, used to you waited till the alarm went off, that thing started vibrating. Now they got the mask, it's got a display in it, how long you've been in, how long it's been on, how much air you've got.
They got ticks built in the mask.
Yeah, and all kinds of stuff, you know, and I'm not saying it's bad, but like I say, that stuff is costly, I think.
Yes.
Air packs, what, $3,000 for an air pack now?
No more than that.
Something like that, baby, a little more?
Yeah.
Really?
About
Okay.
6,000 is what I.
The new ones, yeah, and like I say, it jumps, it's dramatic. And like Doug was saying about, you know, manufacturers being in cahoots, not saying exactly true, but, you know, I talked earlier about the NFPA sitting down, setting standards.
Yeah.
Turnout gear and apparatus, ladders, hoses, different equipment, but in that aspect, but sometimes you wonder who's sitting on the NFPA board.
Well, basically, it's firefighters and officers and stuff from big city fire departments that they're not even thinking with some of these NFPA standards of Podunk Fire Department out here. It's all based on big city fire departments. Got a lot of people.
And you do have some
Lot of money.
manufacturers
Yeah.
sitting on there for some of
Yep.
this stuff.
Yeah.
And not saying it's wrong, but the idea is but you know, the input, not from all aspects of the fire service, I'll say that, when we set some of this stuff up. But like I say, if it goes back to the fact, yeah, it keeps us safe, and we do it right. But I think in some cases of turnout gear, we've gotten to the point where we've taken away that your internal warning
Yeah,
device. that tells you-
self-awareness of.
Yeah, like with the
Since
You
you
feel
hoods
too
and protective.
overconfident.
Yeah, we can penetrate or go into an incident or a structure too far. Whereas before, if you felt, if your ears were burning, hey, it's time to get out.
There's an
If-
issue.
Yeah, if the bees were starting to sting your face, you knew it was getting ready to have a fly show or something. It's getting too hot, get out. And, you know, it's good we're protecting each other, but, you know, you still need some of that humanism to it, aspect of it, to give you that warning.
How about some of your first calls? Do you remember your first fire that you were in, or the feeling you had maybe, or?
I can remember my first, and it was a trailer fire. And we were responding, I had been on the department a month, and I didn't go in on the initial attack.
Right.
But Chief Whiston called me in there and said, we're gonna put out some of these hot spots. And that trailer was hot. I've never seen anything like this. I think, do I really want to get to know to do this? And, you know, he left for life, and he messed me up on the nozzle.
Yeah.
Because last time I saw that nozzle, it's throwing about a 30-degree fog. He turned it over to straight. But he paid for it. It was a hot spot right at the corner of the bathtub. And I was a little low, and that straight stream went right into the corner of the bathtub, up off the wall, and right back into Chief Wilson. I got called everything but a white boy. That was fun. To this day, I remember that. And so would he if he was here.
Probably.
I'm sure we all have those moments that you think back and say, boy, I really messed that up. I made a mistake.
But you learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember the first fire because it was during fire school was the first one that I ever went into, because we had a dry spell there at Hudson. There'd been a whole bunch of fires, barn fires and all that.
Yeah.
Down Horseshoe Bend Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got a dry spell for about 3 months. Didn't have any fire calls at all for those first 3 months. And then came on the fire school that Claude Shue put on, and that was my first one. And I don't think anything was real notable about it, anything to say, but I sure do remember the first one I drove to. Roger Barlow and I were at my house, and the alarm came in of a house fire, and it's right behind the fire department. So, been doing all kinds of friction loss problems, learning everything that I could about driving, 7 steps of pumping, all this stuff. Go in, I get the truck, Roger goes on back to the fire, because it's right there behind the station. I come out, catch a hydrant, go down the road, not knowing that the hose had stuck in the hose bed and had pulled off the hydrant. So I get there and everybody's hand laying it back. I don't even notice. I'm so focused on getting water on that hose line. Forgot, left the siren on, and it blared. And Roger finally came up and turned the siren off. I didn't even notice it turned off. So, you get so focused on what your job is and everything, sometimes you don't see it.
You see
But,
this.
Yeah, you see what, this is what my job is to do. I really don't remember who the person was. I don't remember if it was Whiteside or somebody else had said, you don't, there's no reason to get excited about any call that you go on, because your job, when they call you, everything's out of control. The whole situation's gone. By the time they need somebody to come in, and all you have to do is get the situation under control. You look at every one of them like that, it doesn't matter what's going on.
Well, I wish somebody
Your
would tell
job
me
is
that.
your job is to get the situation under control, whatever it may be.
Well,
Whatever
there
kind
was
of
a lot
call
of
it is.
times, because most of the time I was driving a pumper, but a lot of times getting the water and stuff, and it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
And you had to do it. You had to step back, take a breath,
Start over.
start over, go through your steps and everything. And, there's so much truth to that.
Yeah, just step back. I remember it was, best I remember, about February of '67. There was a game on, and back then, you didn't have the pagers, you didn't have the radios. It was a call system, phone calls. The call
Phone
come
tree.
in, the fire department, the people there, the people at the fire department then, I think, was Ted Wiseman, his wife, and Carol. She was in mine and Sammy's class, but they'd start calling on the phone. Well, then the person at your house, your mother or the sister, whoever, they would have so many people to call on the phone, and that's how it went. But I remember it was a garage fire, remember correctly, up in Harpertown. And like I said, turnout gear was something of a luxury. And I think at that time had a coat, maybe a helmet, and a pair of gloves. And so I got up there, and I remember John Lee Fevers worked for Crowell's in LENOIR, Johnny there. Remember him, he got his business now. But he was assistant chief then. And we were going to do a knockdown between two cars. Most of us were already out, but we was putting out hot spots. He said, come on. We had a booster line, which, wasn't much. But we went in there, and I had a brand new pair of Bass Weegian loafers. And they become a soot-soaked, water, fire, soot-soaked, and a brand new pair of pants on. I had to replace. But I think I got the shoes dried out, but I learned then I went to Chief Kincaid, and I said, now I sure would like to have a pair of pants and boots, after that. And like I say, you had to wait for this stuff, or you contributed or bought it and stuff. And it was a rarity, but that was the first one. I remember, and I always told Johnny, I said, I'll get even with you someday. Yeah. He soaked my pants and my shoes. Oh, they were soaked full. But, and God knows that's a long, long time ago. And, but you still remember that stuff and some of the calls that Chief Laws and I went on and stuff that had us together. Fires, wrecks, and all that kind of stuff. And how it's evolved through the years.
Looking back over all your years, and I don't want to cut anybody short, but just kind of like to wrap up today. If a new firefighter walked right in here, what piece of advice would you give that new firefighter from all your years of experience and all the things you've been through? Looking back on your careers, what piece of advice would you give them starting out? Run.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
How much time you got to listen to this?
Yeah.
Man?
I'll sit in this class with you. I know your answer. But.
One thing that will always come up, and that's about driving. I think everybody, every volunteer that gets on there gets reamed out for driving too fast. Mm-hmm. And the best advice that I could give them, and I know these guys have heard it from me, and I heard it from Chief Whiteside when I started. Best advice is, you've already got one emergency. We don't need another one. And so that was a piece of advice right there. The other is try to remember your family and all this. There's
hard, yeah. They've sacrificed a lot.
Yep, families have to sacrifice a lot. No doubt about it.
I tell my guys, make sure you take care of your homework.
Yeah.
And if not, somebody else will.
Yeah.
Well, and looking at it, something I would teach guys, like I said, there's two things that are important. Number one, safety, and number one's quality. And that you always take an opportunity that you can, every opportunity you can take advantage of to learn. You never stop
learn all
learning.
you can from as many different people as you can.
Yeah.
Because Hudson did things a little different to the Patterson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It all come together at the end, but Hudson was very different to Patterson, Granite.
That's how we've all evolved. We've taken all
learn all
this
you can, go to every school that you can, at least to start with.
Yeah.
And
But
just
never
learn
stop
what you
learning. Like I said, I've been in a long time. I still go to training classes and stuff and sit in there. And there's something that'll jog your memory or something new that's come out that comes back. But it's something you're, to assist in that, I always said, somebody said, we're the best at this. No. You are never the best. You may be better, but
always
if you ever
somebody
say you're the best, then you quit learning, you quit trying, you failed. So you always apply that aspect, safety and quality, and learn as much as you possibly can in every aspect, no matter what it is, fire service or wherever.
Well, I'm with these guys. It's just hard to say. The one thing that I think I would add to what's already been mentioned is that remember what you're doing it for and who you're doing it for. This is there's satisfaction in what you're doing. Satisfaction is one thing, but to glorify yourself is another. You're here to help people save lives and save property and keep yourself safe in the time of doing that. Because one of the things that it's just like Thomas was talking about, getting to a call quick. If you're the first one on the scene, you don't need to be rushing too fast to, if you don't know what the situation is, just like there's certain things can take priority. If there's a gas tank or a propane tank or something like that, you need to know what you're dealing with. You just don't pull a hose and go to squirting water. If you're by yourself, I mean, you need to make sure that you know what you're dealing with, and that's hard to do sometimes. It's hard to step back, and I mean, you've been so trained to get it,
Yeah.
and then having to step back. But anyhow, just making sure you know what you're doing it for and what your purpose is.
You know, we touched on a little bit about the sacrifice of the families, what they put up. You think about the meals you miss, the events, the family stuff.
Birthday parties, that kind of stuff.
Birthday parties, the stuff's been interrupted, you know, your kids' stuff, ball games. A lot of people don't see that out here in the public, or that, you know, what really transpires. You know, you jump up and leave a meal, and or you're at a restaurant. Hey, that's a call. We gotta go. Let's go. Or they say, well, go on, come back and get us. You know, these type of things. So the sacrifice made not only by the firemen themselves, but their families also involved.
Yeah, my wife sat on the side of the road several times.
It's just not you that joins the fire department, the whole family does.
That's true, exactly. Your family, you're a family that's going into a family. And, you know, Doug talked about grabbing the hose and running in there. How many times, if you think about it, I know we've all done it one time or other, you drove the truck, you set it up, you pulled the hose, and you fought the fire.
Yeah.
And it's happened. And, you know, you talk about that and you tell people this, they don't believe it. You say, yeah, it is actually, yeah, it's happened. There's been times. And you just wait, please, somebody else get it.
And that poor old red tanker pulling up there looks like $1 million bucks.
Well, we went to college one time. We were at church at Yankee. And, you know, heard the siren go off on the building when I don't guess many of those work anymore. I know Patterson's doesn't. Butch Thacker, Assistant Chief Butch Thacker and I were the only two firemen in church that morning. I'm out. He got the pumper. I got the tanker. We went up behind the old Blue Ridge paper plant. Did the connections. Houses burning all over more than any place else. And we looked at each other. Neither one of us had any gear. It was like, who's going to do what?
Yeah. Still in your Sunday clothes.
Yeah, Sunday. Chief Thacker said, I got the trucks. Go. That's hot.
Yeah.
He brought up something, and it's totally off of the chart here, but I've noticed that a lot of departments their sirens don't go off anymore. Is that something that they've decided to quit doing, or?
I think it's individual
Yeah,
preference. I know it was brought to a vote by us, and of course, me being old school, I was adamant. No, that's a warning device.
Yeah.
That's you know, if you're outside, you may hear it, but you know, it's a thing. You know, you hate to give up, hate to lose, so to speak, but that's part of it.
It also tells the community we're on the job.
Yeah.
I like it myself. Of course, people say because live next door to it, that's, you know,
You know, there's the pros and cons of that on both sides.
don't that bother you? And I said, well, before I retired, I was up. Sometimes up before it went off
You
too.
may hear that. You be outside and you didn't.
Well, I can hear
Bring
the
your
siren when I'm on my tractor, and I cannot hear my phone alert that I've got that 911 thing.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. That's one of the reasons why I was kind of against that. But that's, but you're right, Thomas. That does.
Let the people know that, you know, something's getting ready to happen. look out.
keep
You're gonna have these crazy volunteers running down the road with red lights on their dashers or trucks. You better move. Look out, here they come.
Sorry to change.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's fine. Did you have some advice
No,
for?
some advice, just get to know everybody that you can, that you're working with too. Not only are you gonna learn from them, but you need to know, how many youngins have you got?
Yeah,
And that kind of deal, you know, that's gonna make the camaraderie
right.
Right.
a really important aspect.
Cause that closeness, when things does hit the fan, and that's
And
what
there's
gets you
the
through
people that's
it.
going, you got to depend on, and they're gonna depend on you.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Like I say, I don't want to cut it short. We still tells tales, but I just want to thank y'all for being here again, and thank you personally, because I've sat in classes, I've run mutual aid, with the guys in the southern end of the county, and just y'all mean, and what y'all stood for has meant a lot to me, and it's helped me because I came into it later on in life, and trying to absorb all I could because I didn't have family that was in the fire service. So I was looking to you guys, I consider you family. But I hope today it's been a good trip down memory lane, and just want to say thank you from all of us that's still in it, and just, for laying the groundwork. And from what it sounds like, we have a lot of the rules because of y'all. But
Good to see one another, and we know who they are. We can remember.
But thank y'all so much for your time, and like I say, as the years go on, this I think this project's going to be even more valuable, looking back on it. So thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God. Born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, perfect delight, wonderful visions now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above, echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior